أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين، خاتم النبيين أبي القاسم محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. أما بعد، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Welcome to Tuesday night program of Dua Tawassul. Inshallah, we'll start with the recitation of Dua. For that, I will request Brother Rahil Nathani to start us off. Bismillah ar-Rahman.
دعاء التوسل. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم إني أسألك وأتوجه إليك بنبيك نبي الرحمة محمد صلى الله عليه وآله. يا أبا القاسم يا رسول الله يا إمام الرحمة يا سيدنا ومولانا، إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله، اشفع لنا عند الله. يا أبا الحسن يا أمير المؤمنين يا علي بن أبي طالب يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا، إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله، اشفع لنا عند الله. يا فاطمة الزهراء يا بنت محمد يا قرة عين الرسول يا سيدتنا ومولاتنا، إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيهة عند الله، اشفعي لنا عند الله. يا أبا محمد يا حسن بن علي أيها المجتبى يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا، إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله، اشفع لنا عند الله. يا أبا عبد الله يا حسين بن علي أيها الشهيد يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا، إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله، اشفع لنا عند الله. يا أبا الحسن يا علي بن الحسين يا زين العابدين يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا، إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا جعفر يا محمد بن علي أيها الباقر يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا عبد الله يا جعفر بن محمد أيها الصادق يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا الحسن يا موسى بن جعفر أيها الكاظم يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا الحسن يا علي بن موسى أيها الرضا يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا جعفر يا محمد بن علي أيها التقي الجواد يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا الحسن يا علي بن محمد أيها الهادي النقي يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا محمد يا حسن بن علي أيها الزكي العسكري يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا وسيل الحسن والخلف الهجة أيها القائم المنتظر المهدي يا ابن رسول الله يا هجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله أجل. يا سادتي ومواليا إني توجهت بكم أئمتي وعدتي ليوم فقري وهاجتي إلى الله وتوسلت بكم إلى الله واستشفعت بكم إلى الله فاشفعوا لي عند الله واستنكذوني من ذنوبي عند الله فإنكم وسيلتي إلى الله وبحبكم وبقربكم أرجو نجاة من الله فكونوا عند الله رجائي يا سادتي يا أولياء الله صلى الله عليهم أجمعين ولعن الله أعداء الله الظالمين من الأولين والآخرين آمين رب العالمين اللهم
صل على محمد وعلى محمد. أحسنتم جزاكم الله. Thank you very much for that beautiful recitation. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept this dua tawassul from all of us, making dua for all of those people who are in need of prayers in these nights that we are approaching, the ayyam known as ayyam arba'in. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give shafa to all the marda of our community. Let's recite 5 times Amma Yujib for all of those people who have requested to do dua. Keep in mind, especially Maulana Sayyid Al-Nisa standards we saw. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Amma yujibu al-mustarra idha da'ahu yakshifu as-su'. أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء 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 ويجعلكم خلفاء الأرض أإله مع الله قليلا ما تذكرون. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين بالقاسم محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. أما بعد فقد قال الله تبارك وتعالى وقوله الحق وهو أصدق القائلين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يؤمنون بالله واليوم الآخر ويأمرون بالمعروف وينهون عن المنكر ويسارعون في الخيرات وأولئك من الصالحين. صلوات على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Inshallah, this Tuesday night discussions are not very long. Inshallah, in the next 15 minutes, 16 minutes that I have, under this ayat of Surah Al-Imran, verse number 114, I will share a few thoughts. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala addresses by saying they have faith in Allah and the last day. يُؤْمِنُونَ بِاللَّهِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ وَيَأْمُرُونَ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ. and they bid what is right, وَيَنْهَوْنَ عَنِ الْمُنْكَرِ, and they forbid what is wrong. يُسَارِعُونَ فِي الْخَيْرَاتِ وَأُولَٰئِكَ مِنَ الصَّالِحِينَ. They are the ones who are active in performing good deeds. Yusari'una comes from sur'at. They're active in a sense that they move quickly to perform good deed when the opportunity arises for them. And these are indeed those who are the righteous ones. As we see that Ayyam Azam are slowly and gradually are coming toward the time of Arba'in, Chihlum of Imam Hussein, alayhi wassalam. And not much, remains after the Ayyam of Arba'in, then the Wafat of Rasulullah and Shahadat of 11th Imam. And this is where your 2 months and 9 days, 8 days of Ayyam Azam come to conclusion. So we are quickly moving in that direction as we are already in approaching the Ayyam Arba'in. While they are coming towards the later part of the Azam, we need to ask ourselves these questions: that didn't we learn anything from the sacrifice of Imam Hussein and the example of those who tried to stop Imam Hussein? So one in front of us is the Sirat of Sayyid al-Shuhada and his companions. And then we have the Sirat of those who stood against Imam Hussein and tried to stop him. Those who initially tried to stop Imam Hussein from going, and then those who stood in front of Imam Hussein, combating him, fighting with him in the battlefield in Karbala, then continuing the atrocities in Kufa, and eventually continuing it in Sham when it all came to an end. So what have we learned, if anything, from the sacrifice of Imam Hussein and the example of those who tried to stop Imam? A few points in this regard, and the principle of Amr and Nahi, according to this ayat number 114 from Surah Al-Imran. That it is possible that our reminder doesn't have any effects now, but will as time passes by. When we try to exhort someone, advise someone for something good, or advise someone against something which is bad that they're doing, it is possible that our reminder to them, because all we can do is remind, will not have any effect right away. So should we just give up? So it is quite possible that reminder won't have any effect now. But as the time passes by, Imam Hussein also said, I rose for Amr bil Maruf and Nahi anil Munkar. Even though he was martyred at that time. Moreover, Yazid and his army didn't get affected by Imam right away, or at all for that matter. The persistence in their stubbornness continued. They didn't stop. Nothing stopped them. They went about their business. So it seems that if you were to look at the effects of Imam's sacrifice in the 61st year after Hijrah, you might say the same thing, that Imam's movement didn't have any effect. But as the time passed by, injustice of Banu Umayyah and oppression over Ahlul Bayt became apparent. Right away, you see that, this caravan moves. They move to Kufa, they move to Sham. And the biggest victory comes, or the first victory comes, when Yazid is majboor to send Ahlul Bayt back with utmost respect. So that's the first victory. But nobody thought of that. At least the enemies didn't think of that at the time when they were gaining grounds on Imam Hussein in Karbala, creating an ambience or atmosphere of, sacrifice, or bringing someone back, or creating the atmosphere of, Amr bil Maruf and Nahi anil Munkar. It itself is virtuous, even if you don't achieve the ultimate goal. So in this way, when you try Amr bil Maruf and Nahi anil Munkar, that ambience that is created, that atmosphere that is created, that is virtuous itself, even if the natija and the result is not in your favor. For example, when a person prays salat individually, it is still recommended for them to recite adhan and iqama. Highly, highly recommended. But when he says hayya ala salah, although there's no one there to listen to him. You're standing at home by yourself, reading salat, praying, offering salat in your basement or in your room, wherever you have a dedicated room in your house. You're praying by yourself, especially that Fajr prayer, and you say Hayya ala salah, Hayya ala salah, Hayya ala falah. Come towards salat, come towards salat, come towards salvation. Who are you calling? Although there's no one there to listen to you, but it's still creating this ambience, has virtues in it. By performing nahi anil munkar, we take away the pleasure and the enjoyment out of sin. So if someone is indulged into an inappropriate action, or if it's inappropriate action is being done by masses, large crowd, by creating or performing the nahi anil munkar, at least we are putting some thoughts in their mind. Even if they were to go ahead and continue with this activity of theirs, we have sort of taken the pleasure and the enjoyment out of the sin. That, right away someone said something, oh, this is not right, you shouldn't be doing this. And so, well, we've already spent so much money, let's go ahead and do it. But the fact that someone already said something against it, this has created this effect in your heart. And in some cases, the pleasure and the enjoyment is taken away from the sin. Sinner also doesn't feel comfortable when they're doing this action. Number 4, excuse for us an ultimatum upon the sinner that, we cannot do more than that. Quran stating the truth is giving ultimatum to the sinner. So you cannot say tomorrow that, oh, nobody reminded me. I did not know the rule. I went about doing it. I've done it many times. I had no idea. Why didn't anyone come up and remind me of what I was doing was wrong? So this is also from that aspect, our duty. 6th Imam Jafar al-Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam narrates that Allah spoke to Hazrat Musa and informed him that I show grace to the children whose fathers try to do Amr bil Maruf Nahi anil Munkar, or khair in general. So if the parents are righteous, they are doing Amr and Nahi, the children are receiving the blessings of that action. Therefore, it is important for us to understand that a silent community, if we don't say anything to encourage when good deed is being done and discourage when bad is being done, we become a silent community. And silent community is a dead community. Quran iterates by saying, وَلَكُمْ فِي الْقِصَاصِ حَيَاتٌ, that there's life for you in retribution. So if a killer is given severe punishment, it will cater that, of course, those who are the recipient of it, the family is, given some sort of course, they can't bring the dead back, but some sort of solace is provided. But it will create a safer environment when the killer is given severe punishment. There are a lot of people who will stand up against the activists protesting the rules of Islam, of capital punishment in certain things. But Allah says it, وَلَكُمْ فِي الْقَصَاصِ حَيَاتٌ يَا أُولِي الْأَلْبَابِ. There's life in it for you in retribution. Because if this individual is not punished properly and it's not shown and made as an example, you are next. You will be suffering as well. But by giving this example, setting this example, we are stopping further damage. We read in a tradition from Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib ﷺ, who said, "Man taraka inkar al-munkar biqalbihi wa yadihi wa lisanihi fahuwa mayyitun bayn al-ahya." A person who doesn't oppose evil with his heart, with his tongue, with his hands. So Imam gave you all the options. Many times we are able to do something with our hands. Many times we can't, but we're able to use our tongues. Sometimes we can't even use our tongues. Then we have to show it through our actions and our hearts, that how we feel about it. So Imam said a person who doesn't oppose evil with his heart, with his tongue, and with his hands. In other words, he doesn't differentiate between good and bad. فَهُوَ مَيِّتٌ بَيْنَ الْأَحْيَاءِ. He is dead, walking between those who are alive. Dead men walking amongst people who are alive. So remaining silent has no benefit, but there is a lot to lose if a person remains silent. Who would understand this better than us? We live in an era where terror threats are so frequent that citizens are requested to, you know, uh, keep their eyes open, or in fact, they're requested by law to keep their eyes open. If you see something, say something, right? Any place of travel, mass transportation, whether it's, by air, by plane, by train, by bus, it says, if you see something, say something. Keep an eye open because there could be evil just around the corner. Based on Surah Asr, even those who have brought faith and have done righteous deeds are in great loss if they fail to do what? وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. They can't just go ahead and accept the haqq and the truth on their own and patience. No, they have to enjoin in haqq together, and they have to implement it as a whole. It is an observation as well as kalam of Masoom that if a sin is done secretly, it doesn't entail danger to general public, as opposed to, of course, a sin which is done openly, and people can, easily, get in its way and try and stop it, but they remain silent. They're asking for God's wrath after displeasure. That's why we read in Surah Anfal, ayat number 25, which states, "And beware of a punishment which shall not visit the wrongdoers among you exclusively, and know that Allah is severe in retribution." The point here is, beware of the punishment which shall not visit the wrongdoers among you exclusively. Meaning what? You could be the recipient of that as well. Therefore, we can deduce that silence in front of sin is an approval of sort. What do you recite in the ziyarah? You are made sort of like a partner in crime. وَلَعَنَ اللَّهُ أُمَّةً سَمِعَتْ بِذَلِكَ فَرَضِيَتْ بِهِ. So, لَعَنَ اللَّهُ أُمَّةً قَتَلَتْكَ, لَعَنَ اللَّهُ أُمَّةً ظَلَمَتْكَ, وَلَعَنَ اللَّهُ أُمَّةً سَمِعَتْ بِذَلِكَ فَرَضِيَتْ بِهِ. So, curse be upon those who did zulm. Curse be upon those, who oppressed. But curse be upon that ummat, those people who were pleased when they heard of that. They didn't do anything. We read this in ziyarat all the time. Ziyarat Warith, Ziyarat Ashura. You have this is repeated in it. Allah addressed the Jews in the time of Rasulullah. That why did you kill the previous messengers? Where it was their ancestors who had committed this crime. But since the children were satisfied with the crime of their ancestors, Allah criticizes them as well. The murderer of Amir al-Mu'mineen, Imam al-Muttaqeen, Ali ibn Abi Talib was one person by the name of Ibn Muljim la'natullah alayh. But on the night of 19th of Ramadan and the 20th of Ramadan, what is that we recite in the tasbih? Allahumma la'an qatalata Amir al-Mu'mineen. Allah curse the killers of Imam Ali. Since many people were okay with it. Many were behind this whole agenda. Many were behind this propaganda. So the word qital, qatalata, or qatilun, all are plural. That Allah curse all those who were involved in the qatl and the killing of Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib. So in conclusion, I just wanted to raise this sort of awareness that didn't we learn anything from the sacrifice of Imam Hussein and the example of those who tried to stop Imam Hussein? Both of these examples are in front of us. We need to choose which example do we want to follow. Wa akhir dawana alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Tawajjah ziyarat. Assalamu alaikum ya Rasulullah, assalamu alaikum Nabi Allah, assalamu alaikum ya Habib Allah, assalamu alaikum ya Khiyyaratullah, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, assalamu alaikum ya Abu Abdullah, assalamu alaikum ibn Rasulillah, assalamu alaikum wa ala jaddika wa abika wa ala ummika wa akhika wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Assalamu alaikum ya Gharib al-Ghuraba, assalamu alaikum ya Mu'in al-Du'afa wal-Fuqara. السلام عليكم شمس الشموس وأنيس النفوس أيها المدفون بعرض الطوس علي بن موسى رضا ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليكم صاحب العصر والزمان. السلام عليكم إمام الإنس والجان. السلام عليكم شريك القرآن عجل الله تعالى فرجك وسهل الله مخرجك وظهورك وجعلنا من أعوانك وانصارك ورحمة الله وبركاته.